Hey guys, I am going to do a quick lecture on the means and motives. I'm just trying to get this straight. Boom. Mm, all right. So what we got here is the motives and means for discovery. We've already discussed in great detail the context, right? We've talked again. Don't know much about the barbarians. That's okay, but we talked about crusades. They wanted Europeans were aware of the goods, ideas, and wealth of Asia and Africa. They wanted to increase trade, connectivity. We know that's true because of Constantinople. We know about Hansa. We know about the Venetian Flanders fleet. We know there's an expansion. That's the beginning of that commercial revolution. And we also know that Renaissance, it reintroduced that critical mind. Critical thinking is when you go, what's out there? And once a series of explorers and adventurers begin to go, what's out there? It's going to open the door for new exploration. So that's kind of what's happening. We did talk about politics and the economics yesterday, but I just want to point out that's what we see. We see that the first thing we see here is the motives. European explorers, states, and clergy were highly motivated to explore because of the idea of fantastic lands, hope for economic expansion, and religious zeals. I get that straight from the textbook. I use the textbook to tell me what I'm reading for. That's that pre-read. And I'm always able to write a kind of a thesis from that, just from that. Really, it's very simplistic once you start getting past the obstacles, guys. All right, the fantastic lands. These fantastic lands are these mythical things out there that the European explorers wanted to find. The print culture, right? The new print culture allowed for the diffusion of stories of fantastic, unrealistic lands that young men wanted to connect to. The examples that he uses is the Travels of John Mandeville. Again, really probably a worthless book for us to know about, except for this moment. Young men began to read about giants, islands, precious stones, precious metals, and all of a sudden they're now infatuated to go out there and find. In some ways, it's very similar to maybe the space race of the 1950s. Astronauts began to say, I want to go out and explore to find maybe Martians, whatever, right? That's kind of the thing that we see there. But we also see mythical Christian kingdoms. There was a belief that these mythical kingdoms, such as Prester John's kingdom in Africa, and the apostle kingdoms in India. So we kind of see that so now these individuals want to go out and connect. They want to see the quote unquote exotic. They want to connect to the outside world. Well, once you start talking about that, clearly that's a motivation. So these fantastic lands motivated explorers to seek these to go out and travel. The economic motives. This is going to be all about the extension of Hansa and the Venetian Flanders fleet, right? We know that they connected to Constantinople. They wanted access to silk, spices, and porcelain, right? Silk, spices, porcelain. Once again, what is it? Silk, spices, porcelain. And they wanted to. But merchants began to really want to connect economically because of a book called Marco Polo's Travels. Marco! I hope you've been playing along. But this is kind of the mythical, again, kind of a journey that Marco Polo may have went to. He went all the way to China. He went around. And when he gets home, he writes about all the economic opportunities. Merchants now are motivated because they want to go connect to silk, spices, porcelain. They no longer want to be stuck in Constantinople. If they can go around and find a new route to Asia, they would have unabated access to silk, spices, porcelain. Will they have to pay the Arabs high money for them to travel? Not at all. But that's what they wanted to do. Marco Polo clearly excited them. This was the desire for precious metals and trade. And again, I do remember 1453. 1453 is not just about the Italian Renaissance. It's not just about the end of the 100 Years' War. 1453 here this is such an important moment. When the fall of Constantinople occurs, the Ottoman Turks kind of regulate trade with Western Europe. So now the Western Europeans have less access to the Silk Road. This is why almost all of the big name explorers comes after Diaz, Columbus, da Gama, Albuquerque, Magellan, Cabral, they all come after. We know their names today because those are the ones that were the brave, if you want to use that, if we want to romanticize, but they're the explorers who want to go out and find a new route to Asia, motivated economically because they want to connect to Asia, especially after the Ottomans restricted that. I hope that makes more sense now. Then we also get religious zeal. The religious zeal is this desire to spread Catholicism. We see Prince Henry. These are if you're power mapping, this is the difference, right? I have this, right? This is Prince Henry. He's an important detail. He says to bring God all the souls that should be saved. I messed up that. And then you see Cortez. He wants to introduce and instruct the Holy Catholic faith to the Native Americans. So they're motivated to spread what they believe is religious truth. But I also want to point out there's something else. It's about this triangulation. Christian Europe wants to connect to Prester John and the apostle team. Who are they think if they can connect? Who are they triangulating? Yeah, the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire is an Islamic empire. We know about what has happened there. You're going to find out a little bit later. They're encroaching upon Europe. So these are the things. So that's another religious. They were hoping to have that crusader spirit. Okay. And I know I talked about that in the first block. I hope I talk about it fourth. Now, real quick, I want to point out the crusader spirit. As Reconquista comes to an end, as the Portuguese are ended, they want to go create this global crusade to spread Catholicism, but also they want to create this crusader spirit to defeat the Turks. So I just think it's kind of interesting and important. Now, the means. The means. They have all the motivations, but what are the means? Well, they have navigate. And again, this is cartography. Cartography. And again, I'm going to rewrite that word cartography if I have my pen. Here we go. Cartography, the art of map making. And what happened during this time period, especially after the Dark Ages came to an end, they revived map making. The Portolani is a Middle Age map. So it kind of illustrates that during the Middle Ages, they were actually kind of mapping out. And this is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of the known world. It's kind of cool how close they were to being so correct. I also want to point out the Renaissance. As the Renaissance began to really push towards antiquity, they revived Ptolemy's geography. And here we see a picture of that. And Ptolemy, he was a Roman geographer who identified that the earth was round. He identified that you could go all the way around. Now, the problem is he completely underestimated the size of the earth. But again, it helps motivate it. It's one of the reasons why Christopher Columbus, he's going to have a copy of geography. Along with travels, he has geography. But I also don't want to ignore the role of the African and Asians. The African and Asian merchants have really drawn maps of Africa, really the Saharan desert. They've mapped out the Silk Road. So Europeans are going to be kind of privileged because they're going to have access, because of cultural diffusion, these better maps. So with the Portolani, with the Renaissance, and these better maps, cartography is significantly better. You probably even have something about the winds in your power map. I don't really talk about those much, but that's part of the mapping. But they also had better navigational tools. From China, the compass. The compass was able to find them. They were able to have access to direction. So when they were in the middle of the open seas, they would be able to find the directions. So it allowed for open sea travels, which means away from the continents, because they're able to find their direction. The astrolabe is another invention, a very important one. It was invented by the Greeks, developed further advanced by the Arabs. And what we see, the astrolabe, they use that to use the stars to find their line of latitude. To find their line of latitude. And the line of latitude is distance north or south of the equator. With the compass and the astrolabe, the navigators were able to break away from the coastline and have open ocean travels, which is really kind of important. Now, that's what we see. Now, the caravels. The caravels are these new ships. These are the fabulous ships of the era. They have an axial rudder that allows them to turn. The lateen sails with a square rig allows them to go into the wind, which makes travel more efficient. Axial rudder in the sails, very important. And then the cannons help protect them from pirates and sea monsters. So these caravels were these new advanced ships that were able to make sailing so much more efficient that they were able then to have to go out and have open ocean travels. So now what? We have the means, we have the motives. Really, for me, it's really about the political size. Only way that things can happen is through a nation state. Before any real exploration could take place, a stable nation state had to form. So when did major exploration begin? Not shockingly, in 1492, Columbus was blessed because of Reconquista. Once Ferdinand and Isabella were able to create the stable, united Spanish nation state, they were able then to utilize their resources to send Columbus to go to the ocean blue. Another example is John Cabot in 1498. Henry VII, once he united England under the Tudor dynasty, he was able to send John Cabot. So without a nation state, there is no sailing. I hope that makes sense to you guys. I'm going to put this up. I'll field questions before the quiz tomorrow.